uh, alumni reading. This is our 40th anniversary. So I know it's not been 40 years, but almost. And I just want to welcome all of you. And you guys are, for the next 40 years, the people we'll be selling, I hope. And I want to congratulate, all of you for graduating from this program, and also for keeping up the good fight about writing and being a literary life, and these days battling against things like censorship that we all are. Ironically, today starts Banned Books Week, and we have a lot to fight here in Miami-Dade County. Last night we had a really wonderful thing with PEN America and the Miami chapter. How many of you know that there's a Miami chapter of PEN America? Cool. If you don't know, Marcy is right over there, and she can help get you involved. We had Daryl Pinckney and Dennis Smith with Nadej Green giving this really great discussion about just where we are and where we need to be in terms of fighting these things. And I just want to do a little bit of a call out to the fact that we're fighting it daily here in Miami. I don't know how many of you are aware of what happened with Nilo Cruz and then in the tropics. But for those of you who don't, in short, the Miami-Dade public school system, after years and years of sending kids to go see Anna in the tropics, decided that they would ban their kids from going to see Anna in the tropics. And there's no discernible reason that one can imagine, other than, that Nilo may be from the LGBTQ community. It's the only thing that I can imagine. And it's really despicable and really horrible. And as a community, we have to make sure that we do all we can to kind of fight that. And maybe we'll do something as a community to sort of get together and do it in an organized way, which I think we should. Anyway, I don't know why I went on my soapbox, but it's, with our governor sending people to, and it's just, if I could shoot darts through my eyes and they could go through a television screen, we wouldn't be worried about our governor. Did I just threaten the governor? Don't live stream that. I take it back.
He takes it back.
There is an alumni coming tomorrow, although he was not in the MFA program. His name is Jonathan Escoffery, and he's written a marvelous new collection that was just nominated for the National Book Award on Thursday. It's called If I Survive You. He'll be with John here tomorrow in conversation. So if you'd like to come, please do that. I believe it starts at 7. In any case, it's really my pleasure to turn this over to a good friend of all of ours in the literary community, and my personal friend, and compatriot for so many years, Les Sanders. Please.
Thank you very much, Mitchell, and thank you for all the things you said. What we do as writers is bear witness. That's our job. That's a big part of it, because we don't. Who is going to do it? Who else is going to? And all writers, all stripes play into this. I've often said to my students, sometimes, we get a little catty and we say, oh, that book, I don't know about that book or that writer. And I say, look, cool it. Any writer, every writer is more your friend than any politician or advertising person, okay? So, we're all one united band. James W. Hall, my former colleague, used to be fond of calling ours the blue-collar school of creative writing. And he didn't mean to denigrate us in any way. But what he did mean was that we were very practical-minded. we were down in the trenches. We were not a school that promulgated some theory of writing, or a bunch of writers who promulgated various theories of writing, but rather we're a faculty that invites good writers in and makes every effort to help them connect with the audience that they intend to reach. And, well, we're up close to 200 books worth of reaching by our alums. So, and we're also with, I don't know how many of you have shared this with, we're ranked the 34th program in the country, which puts us in the top 20% ahead of some pretty big school, some names you would recognize, I assure you. So we've done pretty good, my fellow faculty and you students. The nice thing about this particular program is that it rates us on the basis of student output, which is the very idea of what I was just talking about a minute ago, right? We're trying to find ways for you to reach an audience out there. And one of the things I like about this program is I like the Student Literary Awards program very much in the spring is it gives you a chance to see what's coming down the pike. And that's my great pleasure with this. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague. Oh, I've got some. You're among the first to hear is going to be our Lawrence Sanders awardee in the spring, and it's Sandra Cisneros. She has accepted the award. She's thrilled. She can't wait to get down here. It's going to take place in April. There'll be a lot more details to come, but Julie and I decided that today would be the right time to unveil that wonderful news. So, great. We look forward to that April. And with that, I'm going to ask Julie to come up here and give you the lineup for this afternoon's program. Thank you all for being here. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I think the last time we were all in the States for this occasion was in September 2019. I'm so very glad that we are back. I think we were in the museum last year. We were on Zoom in 2020. I'm just so glad to see you and be able to see you up close. I have the pleasure of introducing 6 terrific writers, all of whom I know personally. I know their work personally, so that makes it even more special. This carousel of readings will take about an hour. Each writer is going to read for 8 or 9 minutes. I will introduce them alphabetically in between each reading. You are welcome to keep eating and drinking and to stay afterwards to do so. At the end of the program, I will close it out by letting you know our upcoming Writers on the Bay events taking place at the Biscayne Bay campus later this fall. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first alumni reader, Yael Aldana. Yael is a Caribbean American and Afro-Latinx writer. She earned her MFA in creative nonfiction from FIU. Her writing has appeared in The Human Prospect and South Florida Poetry Journal, among others. Yael lives in South Florida with her young son. Please welcome our first reader.
Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here, and I want to take a few moments to talk about the kindness of others that's brought me to this point in my life. First, it's due to the efforts of my ironclad advisor from my former degree, my master's degree in women's studies, and I call her ironclad because although she had my best interest at heart, she had the specialty of making me cry. Now, during a difficult conversation, she explained to me very carefully that she did not think I had the aptitude for a PhD, which was going to be my next career move, but I really needed to look into creative writing. So I applied to FIU, and I met Les Standiford. At that time, I did not know who Les Standiford was, but I was promptly informed who he was by another professor at FIU, who, when I said Les's name, dropped his fork in his salad, looked at me, and said, "Les Standiford, he's a big deal." And I thought, maybe I better look this guy up. So Les's fingerprints are all over my memoir. So I applied to FIU, and I did not get in. But I received a very nice letter from Les and Lynn Barrett. If you've ever encountered Lynn Barrett, she has the energy of 2 people put together. And she puts all of that energy into her current MFA students and her former MFA students. And she has generously offered to help me with the final edits of my memoir. And then we have the people who served on the committee to help me bring this project into life. Julie Marie Wade. She is absolutely one of the most enthusiastic and positive people I've ever met in my life. She is an absolute treasure, and it was my pleasure to work with her on this project. Aza Weir-Soley is not here today, but it was really important for me to meet her as a successful Black woman because it made me think that there was a spot of success for me that I could carve out as well and touch as many lives as she has. And then there's Richard Blanco. I think we can all agree that Richard is a titan of poetry. And when I saw him on TV at Barack Obama's inauguration, I cannot imagine that he would be helping me with one of my projects. So thank you all so much for your support and your mentorship. So I'll be reading from my memoir, Only Girl, which is a lot about another titan, my mother. She was the type of woman that when she walked into the room, the whole room would ripple with her presence. And people would turn around and look to see who had walked in. I used to think it was because she was incredibly physically beautiful. But even when she grew old and her beauty fell away from her, she still had the same power. So this is the beginning of my memoir that talks about how I came to be with her. My 3-month-old self lay swaddled and snugly nestled on the passenger side of a white Austin Mini. My caseworker, Helen, was taking me to meet her mother. She put me on the floor for safety so I wouldn't fly off the seat and smack into the dashboard, but she stopped suddenly. It was June 1971, so the car did not have seatbelts. Seatbelts wouldn't be mandatory for another 15 years. Helen claims I stared at her with unblinking eyes for the whole drive. I argued I must have blinked. Also, wasn't she watching the road? How could she have possibly kept her eyes on me the whole time? But Helen wouldn't budge. You didn't blink, she said. Helen was taking me to see her own mother, Clara. She hoped that Clara would like the looks of me so that she would take care of me for a while. I was in desperate need of a savior. My 17-year-old mother, Elena, the other half of Helen's case, was not coping well with me and my infant demands. Elena, a minor herself, was cast out by her family, with me, a bastard in tow. She had been placed in an older woman's home, an older woman who expected her to help with the housework. A squawking baby was a distinct negative, and a dead, tired girl helper was a double negative. Elena said that if she didn't get a break from me soon, she wasn't sure what she would do. A veiled threat that Helen decided to take seriously. Elena begged Helen to find some place for me anywhere, but Helen couldn't find anyone to take a tiny baby that cried too much and couldn't pull her own weight. The only person left to ask was Helen's mother, who liked children. My future hung on that one word, like. Helen drove with the fingers on both of her hands crossed. As she gripped the steering wheel, I needed some luck to get past her mother, and I hadn't had much in my short life. Helen's mother was particular, fussy. She had to have everything just so, according to her own arbitrary standards. Anything about me could rub her the wrong way. If she thought I was too bald, or had a strange smell, or looked cross-eyed. And most importantly, I shouldn't be too black. To Helen, I was a perfectly acceptable baby. She thought I was cute. A medium brown shade. I had a few sprigs of black curls on my head. Elena said I cried too much, but Helen didn't think I cried any more than was expected. Helen turned left at the tamarind tree and into her driveway. She drove past the black wrought iron gates into her garage. She lifted me off the floor of the car, walked into the kitchen, and presented me to her mother, who sat with her arms crossed behind a white and chrome 50s style Formica table. Clara unwrapped the thin white blanket swathing me and picked me up and turned me to and fro. She fingered the thin pastel animal print shirt from the cloth diaper I was wearing. Lord, I wonder how many little bodies been in this shirt. It's almost transparent, she said with her sing-song voice. Clara expertly restored me. She's a nice little baby. What you brought for this child? She has a diaper bag in the car. I didn't know you would take her so quickly, Helen said. Well, what did you think I was going to do with her then? Bring the bag. Let's see what we have. Her mother says she cries a lot, Helen reminded her. Clara sucked her teeth. How old that girl? She's 17, Helen said. Clara sucked her teeth again. She don't know nothing about babies. She's too young. Clara looked at her daughter. Stop getting that bag and get it. I asked you that already. Helen retrieved my bag from the car and spread the contents on the table. 6 cloth diapers, 4 diaper pins, 2 glass baby bottles, and 3 well-worn baby shirts. Clara surveyed the contents disapprovingly. Well, this will have to do till tomorrow. The shops are closed. It's plain milk for you tonight, child. What is her name? Melissa, Helen said. What kind of name is that? That is an American name. I think she was supposed to be adopted by Americans, Helen said. Well, that can't be helped. Clara scooped me up in her arms. Come, child, let's meet Granny. Clara took me down the hall to meet her mother. Helen went into her room and closed the door, her duty done. And with that, I was accepted into this house of women. Clara became my mother, and Helen became my sister. Thank you.
Thank you, Yale. Our next reader is Kristen Gallagher. Kristen also earned her MFA from FIU in creative nonfiction. She's a writer from New England who currently lives in South Florida. She's a contributing editor to The Seventh Wave and a copy editor for the Miami New Times. Her work has appeared in Saw Palm, Hue, and Voices from the Attic. Please help me welcome Kristen Gallagher.
Hi, everyone. Did I turn this off? No. I was so excited to be here that I sat right next to the podium. So I graduated last spring, and I wrote a memoir in the Bill Dung's roman tradition. And then I set it aside, and I decided to write a new memoir. I worked on that over the summer. It focuses on a time about 5 years ago when I first moved to South Florida. I had left another career, had no real idea what I was doing except that I wanted to be a writer. And never thought I would really write about this time of my life. And it's actually the book that Lynn Barrett suggested I write 2 years ago, but I wasn't ready to listen. So that's what I've been working on this summer, and so I'm going to read a short excerpt of that now. After a couple weeks of waking up with a pounding heart, sweaty sheets, and overwhelming nausea, I'm no closer to figuring out why I spend the first 6 or so hours of every day in a state of panic. I don't have a job to go to, so I've been managing by staying inside until after dusk, when I finally feel steady enough to eat something and walk to the beach. Today, I have to clean my apartment and shower because my brother is staying with me for a few days and I want to appear slightly normal. Paul, who's 7 years younger than me, has some work to do somewhere around Tampa. By work, I mean that he sells drugs, but only marijuana. Having a family member or friend who sells weed is nothing scandalous or new to me, but until my brother arrives that evening, I can't say anyone has ever unloaded a car full of product in my apartment before. My studio is filled with totes that contain dozens of vacuum-sealed bags of marijuana, small bottles filled with a Dayglow orange liquid containing tang and THC tincture, and hundreds of weed-infused gummy bears, chocolates, and Tootsie Rolls. Well, Paul's plan is to relax in Miami for a couple of days before driving back to his home in Vermont. By the time he arrives, my body is an electric live wire powered by fear and anxiety, although it has nothing to do with him. The week before, I canceled a trip to Atlanta at the last minute because I couldn't get out of bed, couldn't stop crying. If my brother wants to relax, he should not be anywhere near me. After he settles in, we sit outside my apartment in the damp heat. My building is 2 stories tall and faces an identical white building, and there's a long pathway between them, a design I've come to associate with motels up north. Paul is quiet, tired from the drive. His dog, a black and white pit bull named Max, stretches out on the cement and I pet him, struggling to keep my body from shaking. My pug Willow barks jealously. I am not cold, but my teeth chatter. I watch as Paul sits down on the outdoor couch that I assembled from approximately 40,000 pieces one recent rainy afternoon. My brother isn't terribly tall and is thin enough to be considered skinny, but the couch threatens to split down the middle as he sits on it. I couldn't get the main part in the back to click into place, I explain. I just usually sit near the armrest. Paul laughs as he flips the couch around and checks out my assembly job, shaking his head. I think I've got something to help you in my car, he says. He walks toward the front gate and Max jumps up to join him. I watch my little brother, all elbows in his t-shirt he bought from a pop brand, brown curls tucked behind his ears, barely 28 years old, and I feel a tenderness for him. I breathe in the thick night air and observe the palm trees that line the property. This is where I'm supposed to be happy, I remind myself. Who could be sad here? After a few minutes, the front gate buzzes and Paul rounds the corner, flashing me a smile straight out of his first grade photo. Eyes wide, brows raised, teeth like a zipper. He's all grown up now, cigarette in his hand and tattoos covering his limbs. Paul holds up what looks like a large cloth belt while Max trots next to him, nails clicking against the tile. I light a cigarette and Paul gets to work on the couch. I'm still proud of myself, I tell him. I did a pretty good job. You sure did, he agrees as he wraps the strap around the bottom legs and tightens the buckle, then flips the couch upright. Try it, he says. I sit in the middle of the couch and the reinforcements hold everything together nicely. Thanks, brother, I say to him. Paul and I sit outside together until the only other creature awake is a neighborhood possum. We smoke joints and talk shit, and I finally feel normal, something I can no longer take for granted. I allow myself to believe that maybe all I needed was my brother to fortify me. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Our third reader is Nicholas Garnett. Nick graduated from FIU with his MFA in creative nonfiction way back in 2011. Some of you know him currently also as our creative writing program assistant. His writing has appeared in, among other places, Salon.com and The Best of the Net. A version of his MFA thesis, a memoir titled In the Pink, was published earlier this year by Midtown Publishing. Please help me welcome Nick Garnett.
Wow, it only feels like it's been about 10 years since I was here. Oh wait, it has been 10 years. Today I'm going to read 2 passages from my memoir. One of them is one that I always read, and the other is one that I've never read before. And I chose these 2 passages for very different reasons, and I'll explain those later. The details of how this book came to be are way too long to explain here. Let me just say that getting my memoir published was a long and winding road that often felt like the road to nowhere. Full of obstacles, ironic twists, reversals, and unintended consequences worthy of Lynn Barrett's plot class. In fact, I'll write up that case study if you want to send it to you. The fact that it has a happy ending, not the book necessarily, but the book does. The fact that it has a happy ending is a tribute to the support and encouragement of several people in this room whom I will acknowledge later, I promise. The first passage is the one I always read, and it's the one that, when this story was my MFA thesis way back 10, 11 years ago, was page 1. So this would have been the very first thing you read. And I'll talk more about that after I read it. I guess you need to know that Rachel is my now ex-wife. Rachel, a dozen or so gay men, and I stood by Dr. Hector's poolside jacuzzi on Fire Island. We watched Jason and Mandy again. It was sex, but it wasn't particularly sexy. It was more Animal Planet than Spice Channel. Mandy had braced herself against the edge of the blue fiberglass tub, her ropey black hair spilling down in front of her, except for the thick band that Jason had gathered in both fists. With each of his thrusts, a swell of water cascaded over the lip of the tub to the deck below. The sound of water slapping wood blended with the couple's staccato rasps and grunts to form an oddly syncopated rhythm. It was a pretty slick groove, actually, somewhere between bossa nova and Barry White. The faces on the men gathered around the couple were rapt, and who could blame them? This was at least as good as any porn movie, and it was the real thing, and it involved a hot straight man with huge muscles and tattoos. I turned to Rachel, and she gave me a different take, annoyance. Our friend Trevor had been wrong about Fire Island. It was more. Much more. The place was as over the top as William Shatner reciting Shakespeare. Narrow boardwalks wound through pine forests and connected the houses together like the yellow brick road. Trees reverberated with the clickety-clack of big men pulling little red wagons full of groceries and luggage to and from the ferry terminal. There were miles of desolate sand dunes and achingly beautiful sea-lined beaches. But all that bucolic splendor was just a setup for what this place was really all about. Bug-eyed excess. Where a summer share set you back the cost of a 3-bedroom rambler in Paducah. Huge, lavish parties, smaller, yet more lavish parties. Social climbing galore, one-upsmanship, balls to the wall, 24/7. The only nightclub, the Pavilion, was a wooden sweatbox. In the morning, a stream of tweaked-out zombies shuffled shamelessly along the walkways on the prowl for their house or an after-party, but mostly for sex. On Monday mornings, the human effluence made its jittery, sleep-deprived way down to the dock for the bucket-of-blood ferryboat ride back to Sayville. I'll stop there. That used to be the very first thing you would have read in my memoir. The chapter goes on to describe a weekend, a lifestyle, and a relationship that had really come off the rails, full of self-indulgent behavior and lots of debauchery. John Dufresne, who edited the version of the story that would eventually end up getting published, he was the one that pointed out to me that though my intro did get your attention, without any context or lead up to that scene, it was kind of over the top. And that was great advice. Great advice from a great writer, a teacher, and editor. And as you can see now, that passage is really where it belongs about halfway through the story. Another thing about that passage, also exactly 10 years ago, I read it at a live storytelling event. And before I went on stage, I told the producer of that show that it was bound to scare off any and all available women. Would guarantee that I'd stay single the rest of my life. In the audience that night was Denise, who is now my wife. We met right over there at the after party by the bar. So there's an ironic twist. The last thing I'll read happens much later in the story. I've never read it before. It's the big emotional revelation in the story where the central theme of the book, which I think is finding one's place in the world, is confronted. I don't really like epiphanies in stories because in real life they don't often happen. But this one is real, and I think it was earned. What happens is I've split with my former wife. I'm licking my wounds up in Provincetown, Massachusetts, and I'm staying with close friends, Trevor and Wes, at their house. I go out to a club with them, and it dawns on me that as toxic as my life had become, I had just walked away from it and everything else that had once made me feel so connected. Suddenly, I don't know where I fit in anymore. Like I said, a major theme of the story. So feeling lost and sorry for myself, I'm headed out the door. Nearly to the door, I felt a hand on the back of my neck. I turned. It was Trevor. "Where are you going?" he asked. "Good question," I said. Trevor studied my face like he was trying to make sense of a puzzle. He motioned backwards to the club, outside. I followed him out through the back doors leading to the pool and deck set against the harbor. Our skin steamed in the cool air. We wound our way through the crowd, stopping once to say hello to a few acquaintances who treated me with the strained, sugary concern usually reserved for newly diagnosed cancer patients. Finally, we got drinks at the thatched tiki bar and found a couple of empty seats at a table over in the far corner of the deck. A new moon shone over the harbor, bright, fresh, and full. The masts of the sailboats wagged in the moonlight. Trevor took a swig from his Cape Codder and leaned back in his chair. "So what's going on?" "You sure you want to know?" I asked. "I thought it was going to be all fun and games this weekend." He said, "It was until I got a look at you. The last time I saw that expression on a guy's face, I was at his funeral." I took a swallow of water. "I thought it would be different, like the old days, right? But it's not. I mean, I went ahead, I blew up my life. For what? Rachel and I had our problems, sure, but at least I knew where I stood. We had friends." I pointed to the people milling around the pool. "We had this." Trevor took his free hand and rubbed it back over his hair. He said, "I've done 2 pretty good hits of X and several cocktails. And the reason I mention this is about to get serious with you, and I need you to pay close attention because I don't know how long I can maintain. Okay?" I nodded. "I never told you this before, but when I first met you, I resented the hell out of you." I said, "You made that pretty clear." "You know why? You said I was playing out of my league." "Want to know what I meant?" I nodded. He said, "I thought, here's this straight guy with a beautiful wife that gets all the benefits of this life without having to pay any dues." He paused. "This is where you're supposed to ask me what dues?" I said, "Since when do you need a prompt?" "Fair enough," he said. "Like, growing up knowing you're different from everybody else, thinking you're the only freak in the world, laughing along with the faggot jokes at school, hating yourself the whole time. You kiss some guy in a bathroom stall and feel so ashamed the next day, all you can think about is how you'll word the suicide note. Stay up all night, night after night, your gut's a mess, because you know if you get up the nerve to tell your parents you're a faggot, there's a good chance your father, the man you admire most in the whole fucking world, will never speak to you again. Wonder if you're going to die because the condom slipped. You understand what I'm saying?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. "So, you get through all that, you carve out a life for yourself, you meet somebody you know you'll be with the whole time, the rest of your life, you make some money, you tell yourself you don't have to give a shit anymore what anybody thinks about you. You create this club, the circuit, which is like a big fuck you to the world, where everybody understands you, where everybody's fabulous. And then, after all that pain, all that work, all those dues, in strolls this straight dude, ambles up to the bar like he owns the place. Get it?" I flushed from anger. "Oh yeah, I get it. You think I'm an arrogant asshole." He said, "You are confusing yourself with me." Trevor put his hand on my shoulder. "That's how I felt at first. But then I got to know you better. And I understood something. That you were as confused and lost as I used to be. What I get about you is that you've never lived your life for yourself. Always through other people. 4 other people. Leaving Rachel, he took his hand off my shoulder and put it on my cheek. That's your coming out. And nothing is free. I learned that in business, and I learned it in life. All this you're feeling now, they're your dues, with interest accrued. I took a long swig from my cocktail and looked up to the moon. So you're saying I'm banished? Is that what you're trying to tell me? He said, leave the melodrama to the fags. We're so much better at it. Trevor sighed, then smiled. What I'm saying is, it's a big world. Go out and find where you belong. That was never going to happen for you. Not with Rachel. Don't waste your time trying to recreate what you had. The whole point is not to. Besides this, he motioned to the crowd, this isn't a life. It's a party. All this time, I thought Trevor had meant I wasn't good enough to be gay. And what he was really trying to tell me was that trying to be gay was never going to be good enough for me. Something had just ended or just begun. Maybe it was both. I leaned forward and we touched forehead to forehead. I read that passage today because, what's it hard to say? Because Trevor, whose real name was Sean, the person I just had that conversation with, he died a couple of weeks ago. And I'll be going to his memorial in Provincetown at the beginning of October. Sean was a big part of this book and a big part of my life, so I read that part of the story as a kind of tribute to him. And here's why I want to acknowledge FIU's MFA program in creative writing and all the wonderful faculty, all of them, in this room. Beginning with, and especially John Dufresne, whom I already thanked earlier, Lynn Barrett, who was on my thesis committee, and Julie Wade, who read my story and gave me literally pages of excellent feedback in return. Yes. And most of all, I want to thank the program's founding director, my former thesis director, and now my boss, he and my wife Denise, both flanking me here, never gave up on me or this story, even when, to be honest, I had. They are the 2 biggest reasons I'm standing here today, 10 years later, holding this. As I say, in the very last line of the story, in the epilogue, the last page of this book, the story of my past became the pathway to my future. And for that, I am indeed grateful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Our 4th reader today is Deandra Miller. Deandra graduated with her MFA in fiction from FIU, of course. Her work has appeared in So to Speak, The Rectangle, and 10th Street Miscellany. She is now an instructor of English at Florida Atlantic University, and she is currently querying literary agents with the manuscript that was her MFA thesis, the novel Hail Mary. Please welcome Deandra Miller.
Hello, everyone. So I will say that today, I have a lot of thanks to give to a lot of people in this room just before I read, because I thankfully have everyone who was in my thesis committee here. So I do want to say first, thank you to Lynn. We are all going to shout out Lynn because Team Lynn forever. My wonderful thesis director, who I can thank because I can say that I am no longer querying my novel. I now have an agent as of today. Process, but also thank you to Dr. Sean Christian, who was on my committee, and John Dufresne, amazing people who gave me great feedback. And even though he was not on my committee, the person who helped me work and rework this from screenplay from short story that got me into this program. Thank you so much, Les. He has seen this in almost every iteration that it's been in and put up with me as I have flipped this thing backwards and forwards to get it where it is now. And so, yeah, I'm so grateful to everyone. And I mean, even though they may not be all the professors, I thank you to all of my friends here in this room because I could have not survived this program without all of y'all. So, hey, I'm the only fiction person on here today. So, not a lot of fiction representation, but I want to give you guys some context for the scene that I'm going to read. And so Hail Mary follows an autistic black teen named Aiden who aspires to play football like his older star quarterback brother Brandon. Though Aiden finally gets his chance to be on the team, it comes at a cost when a fight during a post-game celebration that Aiden was involved in leads to police being called and his older brother Brandon being shot by a police officer and paralyzed from the waist down. The scene that I'm reading is post-shooting when Aiden, along with a few of his new teammates, attempt to follow a lead to what they believe is the house of the officer who shot Brandon. They decide, while they're there, that it's a good idea to egg and toilet paper the house. Okay. The egg smacks the window, and I hear a resounding crack. Shit, Dustin says now. I think you broke it. My mouth falls open. Oh no, oh no, oh no. Then a laugh erupts from Reg's mouth. He doubles over, holding his sides, laughing until tears stream down the side of his face. Bernard watches him for a split second before he starts to laugh too. Then Dustin, then Greg. Before I know it, they're all laughing, and it takes me a second to realize that I'm laughing right along with them. I broke a window. I got in 2 fights. I egged a house, and all we can do is laugh? So, you all were stupid enough to show up, huh? A voice behind us cuts into the laughter. I turn, and 5 boys, all varying heights, hair colors, and builds, but all white, stand in the street by the car. What's that supposed to mean? Reg asks now. He still has a trace of laughter in his voice. It means you dumbasses really thought someone would just hand you the address and it would be it, like you actually showed? The boy speaking is tall and lanky. His dark brown hair is gelled down to the side. You never once thought, wow, this is convenient? Yes, I did. I got outvoted. Maybe we didn't give a shit, Reg says now. Maybe you should have, a lanky boy says now. Why trick us? What do you want? Bernard asks. We saw that video of Brandon attacking a cop. We didn't believe he was in the hospital. We thought he'd show. Why? I ask now. My dad's a cop. This is my house. I've seen some people trashing cops online since this dumbass shooting. They're calling cops racist. They're saying that they need to fire everyone in the police department. My dad hasn't done shit wrong. People like Brandon are the problem. People like all of you. Lanky boy says now. I don't know what you're talking about. I saw you in those videos too, Lanky boy says now, on the floor, screaming like a monkey. The hell did you call him? Dustin says. Why are you even with them? Don't you feel like the odd man out? Just you and all these neg. Dustin sprints forward and tackles Lanky boy in the stomach, and the others jump on him. Greg, Reg, and Bernard don't hesitate. They each rush forward, swinging wildly and grabbing at Dustin to get him off the ground. 2 full seconds pass before I move, launching myself into the middle of the chaos, hitting my fingers across my fist. Everything is a blur for exactly 16 seconds as curse words, screams, and insults fill my ears and punches land on my skin. We got Dustin, let's go. I break out of the mosh pit and run toward the car, diving into the back seat. Reg and Bernard clamber in after me, and Dustin jumps into the passenger seat. Greg starts the car and pulls off with the driver door still open. The group of boys run after the car for a few seconds before finally giving up. Greg slams the door shut, and his eyes dart between the rearview mirror and the front windshield. I stare out the back window until Greg turns the corner and the boys are out of sight. Once they're no longer a threat, I collapse in my seat. Well, shit, Dustin says now. Silence. Then we all burst into laughter. Yo, I almost got my ass beat, Dustin says now. No, we all did. What the hell were we thinking? Reg chokes out between laughs. Not gonna lie, that was dumb as shit, Bernard says now. I don't speak. I just laugh and laugh until all I can do is cry. Greg looks around at me as he speeds through a neighborhood. You good, Aiden? He asks now. I don't know. I haven't felt this way before. I feel joy, almost. Laughter that won't stop, but also sadness. Brandon's not here. He's not here to see this thing that happened, these fights, these moments, and the relief. We're safe, and the surprise, and the guilt, and It's okay if you're not, you know. Bernard says now. It's okay if you're not okay. I nod. Greg watches in the rear view, then swerves onto the lawn closest to us. We all slide around in the seats of the car, jolted by the sudden turn. Greg, what the hell, Reg says now. You want us to die? We almost did that already, Greg says now. He lets out a whooping laugh and swerves onto another lawn. I look behind us, and Greg leaves tire tracks on lawns and dirt trails in the street behind us. Fuck it, Greg says now. He lowers the windows and yells through the window. Fuck it! Bernard and Reg laugh, and wind their own windows down and yell with him. Dustin leans forward in the middle, fiddling with the radio, changing stations until it settles on a station playing Nuck If You Buck, then he collapses back in his seat. Fuck it, Dustin says with a shrug and chuckles. I look around at them all, tears in their eyes, smiles on their faces, screaming out of the windows. I've never felt more lost. I've also never felt so fast. I stick my head out of the window just as Greg swerves onto another lawn. Fuck it, I scream into the sky. I keep screaming until my voice gets lost in the warm night air.
Thank you, Deandra. Our next reader is Brittany Marlee Owens, who publishes as B.M. Owens. She earned her MFA in poetry from FIU. Her work has been published in Salamander Magazine, Small Orange Journal, and South Florida Poetry Journal, among others. In 2022, she was a finalist for the Academy of American Poets Prize and nominated for Best New Poets. Currently, Brittany works for Miami Book Fair. Please welcome Brittany.
Crazy to be here. It's crazy to think that last time I was at the alumni reading, apart from last year, 3 years ago, I didn't think I'd be here, and here I am, and it went by too fast. So if you're new, definitely enjoy it. I definitely miss it. And I want to thank my mentors, can't speak, my mentors and my teachers, Julie and Denise, Cindy, all the professors here. You've all taught me so much. And my brilliant cohort, I'm so lucky to have been able to read your work and learn from you. Okay, so I'm going to read, surprisingly not a poem, I'm going to read a lyric essay instead. Shout out to Julie for, changing this form, a form that has completely changed my life. But, alright, so this lyric essay is called The Leah Floats Still in Miami. Imagine swimming in a pool. No. Imagine living in that pool. Imagine that pool being all that exists in the world to you. The pool is your world, and your world is 35 feet wide and 12 to 20 feet deep. You're 20 feet long and swim in constant circles as children bang on the see-through glass tank. High-pitched whistles sound, and you breach, but you're not sure why. You're given food. That's why. You continue your circles. You're making something. The water laps around the sides. Your fins guide you to the water with incantations others don't understand. You don't really understand them either. You swim, and you're still here, swimming. A whirlpool forms at the center. This is it. You charge toward it, hoping the water sucks you in, that it'll tear holes into the bottom of the tank, into reality. That it'll pluck and sweep you into deep waters, that it'll bring you home out to the Pacific Ocean, or at least drown you, but it doesn't. The water settles, your body is stiff, and you float beneath the Florida sun. Maybe if you're still enough, the heat will melt your blubber, and you can ooze out of here through the drains. The sun only blisters your skin, but you don't seek shade, because you already know there isn't any. This is all there is. The pool is your world. Your name was Tokite, and you once dived almost 500 feet with your pod off Puget Sound, but now you're here at Miami's Aquarium, and they call you Lolita. You can smell the Atlantic Ocean, you can hear its sounds, laps of waves clapping against each other, fish and their echoes of movement. You're in this pool, but you can feel the sounds of an ocean you never knew. The gulls call out to you in a language that's familiar but forgotten. They try to tell you news of family on the other side of the continent, how your sisters and cousins have multiple stillborn calves, how the dead bodies float at the surface, or the way you float in this pool, how their mothers carry them, push them with the tips of their noses, gently prodding them to swim. The gulls tell you of the diminishing salmon supply, about the humans taking too much, the way they always take too much. The gulls tell you about the islands of trash they've seen. They try to tell you about the noise pollution, but their beaks can't make the sounds human sonar makes. And even if they could, you wouldn't understand. None of these sounds are familiar anymore. You were taken from the Pacific Ocean at 4 years old and sold for $20,000 in 1970. You don't know what money is or what years are. There's no timekeeping in your world. Whales don't use money in wild or captive worlds, except you're here to make money. You are a commodity. As long as you wave your flipper and bleach and splash just enough, as long as the audience claps for you, as long as you don't attack the trainers, they'll make sure you're fed. The two white-sided dolphins you share the tank with understand less than you do, but they care less because they have each other. You don't talk to them. If they swim close to you, you swim away. You haven't seen another orca in years. For all you know, you're the last orca in the world. You're at least the last orca in your world. You shared the tank with Hugo, a male orca from Puget Sound, for the first 10 years of captivity. He helped you remember your family. He brought the sounds of home here. He felt familiar. You fuck him constantly. What else is there to do in here? But you never had a calf of your own. You knew this was no place to raise a young whale. You knew they'd take your baby away from you, that your calf would grow up in another small tank. Your calf would be different from you. Your calf would never know the ocean. It was all too much and not enough for Hugo. Maybe you weren't enough for him. There's not enough of anything in here. He liked to ram his head into the tank. Maybe he thought he hit the tank hard enough, he could shift its location on the earth, tip the two of you into the Atlantic. Maybe he was creating a language, a pattern of bangs, calling out to kin. Maybe he thought he could expand the tank himself. Maybe he thought he would tell the humans that two orcas couldn't live here. One orca couldn't live here. This couldn't be your entire world. He kept ramming his head into the tank, into the hands of children banging on the viewing windows that have signs that say, please don't bang on the glass. Once he almost tore off his rostrum. They had to surgically remove his upper jaw, reattach his upper jaw. Maybe he thought he could tear himself apart. Maybe he thought the pieces of himself would find their way back to the ocean. His dorsal fin flopped over, and he continued to bang against the tank as he coped by swimming in circles, unable to stop him, unable to help him, unable to do anything else. Hugo died of a brain aneurysm, and they dumped his remains into the Miami-Dade landfill. Vultures picked at his flesh as the sun boiled away his blubber, sticking to fragments of plastic and cardboard and spoiled food. He lies in unrest in an ocean of trash, and you don't know it, but that's where you'll end up too. Groups of activists are fighting in courts about your rights. They sign petitions, protest, post posters on billboards, write essays. But even if they win, captive whales forget how to live in the ocean. After 2 decades in captivity, Kiko, the whale actor in Free Willy, earned enough money from his captivity. He performed enough so they decided they could return him home to Iceland. After years of therapy in a contained cove where humans tried to teach him how to catch his own fish again, they released him into the open ocean. He never found his family, and he never socialized with other whales, and he never remembered how to be a whale. In 2003, Kiko died of pneumonia. His body, at least, now rests on a quiet seabed inside the heart of the ocean. But you'll never pay off your debts. You're not a whale actress, and your ticket sales are too low. If they were too high, Miami would never let you go. No, your entire world is this pool, and there are no fish or whales or oceans, so you swim in circles around the tank, casting circles of incantations, spells to forget, spiraling whirlpools surround you until you remember again, this is your world. Stop and go still.
be sure our last reader is here. Before I introduce her, is Carolina Soto here? She's here. Wonderful. I'm going to introduce Carolina Soto, sometimes known as Nina. She's a Miami-based musician, poet, and teacher who also graduated from FIU with an MFA in poetry. Her work has appeared in Origins Journal, Nebraska Poetry Society, and Fish Food Magazine. She teaches creative writing at FIU and runs a family-owned music school with her husband and partner. Please welcome Carolina Soto. Hi, Julie. Hi, Kenny. Hi, everybody. I haven't seen the program in years, I feel like. It has been years. Alrighty. Wow, I really haven't even been seeing anybody in the program since COVID, and I didn't think that I would get to do this event in person, so it's almost like good that I took the long route, although I don't know if I recommend it. Thank you so much to all the teachers and Julie especially for helping me write a book. My biggest goal, I think, was having something that completed me more than anything, and I feel like this project came to life in this program. So I'll read a few poems, keeping on track here. Mother of Thousands, after Sylvia Plath's Nick and the Candlestick. The letter O, origin, starved spaces, unfurled open air, warm and unlike. My words yellow-blue. They exist in only poems, anointed crowns of eyes, and the eyes, and the eyes. All the words ink black. Are these not mine? I cannot write another until I water the garden living in my house. I mouth each line, its syllables, curved spines. It's even hard to remember the writing of it. Hang red letters from hooks into hard endings. Imagine the whisk of writing. Meaning does not belong to me. Second poem is, I'm not on social media. I might have an alternate life on social media that continues, but, so this was based on my deactivation. How has your deactivation been going? People worth missing, the blackening of the screen. Were you in a bed or dissolving sugar in coffee? In the room, light wants to escape, find on the corners, meaty lips, meaty tongue slits. Are these mouth moods? Muscle memory and gouged gums, our throats coarse breath, warm jets stream through throat. Meaty pursed puckers, like a petal just burst out its entwine, your skin relaxes onto mine. What is your gold pollen? Write a poem with the word disarming in it. I started a project through, this was undergrad, in the Campbell course. We had a book in the palm of your hand, I think is this red cover, and there was a translatic assignment, and it just opened up my world. So these are phonetic translations from poems in another language into English, and then the poem thing happens, right? Aluminum, translated poem from Al Anima Mia by Umberto Sal. In vertigo, animals may separate. Nature, a haven. A Scorpio lassos an iguana like a name. Salted nostrils, the state of canned onions nullifies. Occulted by vicinity. A pen conducts light, drives through oil. A pen conducts, light dives through oil. Try true yellow statements. The gate wills open, such a sensation. Overpriced misery is gaudy. Seek 2 ill males and teach them of ovaries. A translytic model behavior from La Butte by Baudelaire. Some of the largest flukes are false forces, departures, curved fonts bowl out feelings, cars drive fast, fashionistas, docile animals, insecure imprints, what fiery monuments, deviated messages amaze generations justly, movements kick, less lingering, seasons were uncoerced. It's Monday since our last conversation consisted of our mothers as we poured our inspirations into a pot of arms. How you guys doing out there? Directions on how to swallow this bird. Take notes. Just kidding. I can't swallow this bird. How each new knots. Sorrow is sadness in a bow. The water is not always shallow. I can't swallow this bird. Go deeper into the bellows. Let's go below. Let go. Now flying pharaoh. I can't swallow this bird. I can't swallow this bird. All I can say is ow. Don't follow. Can I borrow this? Carry me in this wheelbarrow. A crow, a crow. Where is my arrow? How is it we are still? How just go with the flow, bow down against the plow. It's hard to know what's right now. It's hard to know what's right now. I'll allow it this time. Let it go. Show me how to work this vow. And now I won't swallow this bird. And now. I think that is my time.
You can see, of course, why we are so proud of the graduates of our MFA program. And the good news is, even though the reading is over, the party is just beginning. If you would like to stay and eat and drink and be merry, and most importantly, to speak to the writers and maybe to buy Nick Garnett's book and have him sign it, all of these options are on the table for you now. I just want to let you know about the 2 other Writers on the Bay events we have coming up this fall. Both are at the FIU Biscayne Bay campus in North Miami. The next one is Thursday, October the 13th at 8 p.m. in our Wolf University Center bookstore. Our Biscayne writer is Jill Bialowski. You don't want to miss this. And then you also don't want to miss on Thursday, November 3rd, also 8 p.m., also the FIU Biscayne Bay bookstore, visiting writer, visiting poet, Chen Chen. So please come. Our events are always free. They're always open to the public. You should feel encouraged to spread the news by word of mouth and by social media if you're inclined. Thank you again so much for coming, and final applause for all of our readers.
One of the best we've ever had, right? Okay, congratulations.